Yo, yo, yo! Welcome back to another episode of the Win-Win Effect Show presented by WINJECT Studios. Man, oh man, oh man. If you're watching the video of this right now, I'm pretty sure you've seen this little beautiful mug on the other side of this. It was the original co-host of the Win-Win Effect, Mr. WES BAIZ. What's up, man? Welcome back.
Man, it's good to be back. Man, everything looks so good, man. The way the branding, everything, man, this all looks beautiful.
Yeah, we changed from the yellow to the gold because now, you know, obviously you broke over a certain amount of downloads and streams. And of course, that is a byproduct also the value that we brought for the first like 2 or 3 seasons of the show. I'm really excited about today's episode, and we have no agenda, like we never really have an agenda when we have conversations. So I'm sure that everyone here is, if they've listened to season 1, 2, and 3, there's not just the complexity of understanding people and understanding situations, or even when it comes to people redefining themselves, and when they stop trying to be what the world is telling them to be and reinventing yourself when you're already successful, that's probably one of the hardest things in a new identity for yourself. So there's a lot of different types of ways we can go with this conversation. I'm sure that everyone is really excited to have you back, man, but this is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back. Yeah, it's amazing to think about. Like right now, if I think about and I go back to listen to our first couple seasons,
we didn't know what the fuck we were doing.
Yeah, I mean, like you think like it's like, you know, we were doing great, but like now you think about it, 2 years later, how much has changed? How much growth has there been? You know, personally, professionally, and all of that. And it's just that's what I love about podcasts. It's like a moment in time. You know, you can go back and revisit
captures.
It.
Yeah,
and you're like, wow, this is. I thought I knew what I was talking about here, and you know, and for the for the most part, I did, but like. Now you look at myself, I'm like, man, you're able to watch yourself turn into a whole new person, you know, over that course of time. So it's beautiful, and what you've done here is great, bro. It's all deserved, and I'm happy for you. So.
Yeah, you become multifaceted in a couple different ways, right? In different dimensions. I mean, I've listened to, I can't remember what episode it was. It was one that we had on. It was I can't say the name of the person because I'm not going to give him any kind of clout because he's a piece of shit. But we had him on a show, and immediately we identified he doesn't know what he's talking about because he started quoting Muhammad Ali. I think you know what I'm talking about now. Yeah. Muhammad Ali and all these people started quoting. I'm like, do you just look at e-cards all day? Like,
yeah, that's amazing. You know, it's amazing. It's amazing. Like, you know, you want everybody to be who they are. You want everybody to be successful, but you start to quickly identify how many imposters there really are, and you hope that they one day actually become who they say they are. But it was pretty interesting. Some of those episodes that we had, and we're like, yeah, all right, this conversation didn't go exactly like we thought it was going to go, but you know, oh well, it's still entertaining either way.
You know what? I even tried to put on a face on a couple of them, try to carry the show. But you see, you have one of those personalities, and this is what I love about you. Once you have an inclination they're an idiot, you immediately shut off.
Yeah, I check out.
There's some episodes that Wes just didn't really engage that much with that person.
Yeah, I just checked out. I'm like, man, I can't even fake a connection here. I'm like, all questions I could think of are just not even in my mind. It's just done. It's a done deal.
It's like, Wes, you have anything to say about that? Nope. You have anything you want to add to that? Nope.
Not today.
I mean, I think that, you know, we got to around like mid 3rd season, and then I started doing some episodes by myself, actually doing obviously the people that we do know, and there hasn't been a week, I think, since the time that you set up, you know, obviously reinvented a different side of you, and you know, obviously your success. I'm so proud of how much maturity you showed, even to myself, when you got to a certain spot and you were like, listen, bro, it's not that I don't want to do the show with you anymore. It's I need to deal with my own stuff. And it wasn't like you needed to deal with stuff like everything was falling apart. We were probably one of the most sought out salespeople when it comes to that side in the world. And we're like, I don't want to do this no more. Like we weren't passionate about what we did anymore because we just, I guess we got to a certain spot, at least for myself, and I'll let you obviously speak about, obviously, the nature of the events and obviously the different things you had to accomplish and go through and grow through. But when I got to a certain spot for myself, I was like, man, I was exposed to so many people that were pretending to be somebody they're not. And I realized that how great we were at what we did. Big fish in a little pond. But then we got into a big pond. We realized we're actually sharks. We're like, wait a minute. We kind of know what we're doing here. You know?
Well, exactly.
Not to pat ourselves on the back, but it's true. Yeah,
well, exactly. And sometimes you got to give yourself that, like some people would be like, oh, that's a egotistical way of thinking or whatever the case might be. I'm like, I don't look at it that way. I'm like, there's a difference, but sometimes you have to face the reality that you're in, and it's okay to tell yourself, hey, I'm better than this. Right? Or I know what I'm doing, or I'm confident that what I'm doing is the right way. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, whatsoever. But yeah, for me, I was going through a time, bro, like I was watching you grow so much, obviously. And I was really evaluating myself, right? And I'm just evaluating myself, thinking, like, who am I? Like, that was the question. I'm like, who am I? Right. And I got to a point where I've just lost passion in life in general. Like, I'm sure a lot of people have had that at some point where it's just like nothing sounds good. Like you don't even want to do anything. Right. So, and that was a hard point because we're having a lot of success in what we were doing. And that's the hardest point into which to walk away. But there came a point where I'm like, if I don't actually become aligned in who I am, everything is going to fall apart. Everything is going to fall apart because number one, everything in my personal life is going to fall apart. And number two, because we're directly, we directly influence each other in business because we're partners. At some point, I'm going to be a negative impact on everything. That's where my mind went, right? I'm like, so I'm like, all right, I need to take a step back at this point. And that was a very hard decision to make, but I basically quit everything. Like, I know everything. I was like, I'm done with it all. Right. And then I started to just try. I'm like, let me just try different things. I was like, I'm no longer committed to any one thing at this point, at this particular stage, but whatever comes to mind that I think I want to do, I'm just going to do. And wherever it takes me, it takes me. And the beautiful thing about that is none of those things that I thought that the ideas that I got, none of them panned out whatsoever. But they weren't supposed to. They weren't supposed to. But the beautiful thing, though, in the course of that process, you start to realize what you love, what you don't love, what you hate, what you're missing in your life because you're so exposed to different things. And then that whole experience helps you change you into who you are.
Right. So. It was kind of funny when we had a really tough conversation, and that tough conversation, made me closer to you. Right. And well, I've always been very protective anyway. We're both very protective over each other. But when you were going through what you're going through, and I had to almost to the point where I had to stop myself from reaching out. I was like, I'm going to end up hindering a piece of his growth process if I continue to reach out and try to help, because you want to help, right?
Of course.
I mean, you're my brother. I love you. So I'm like, well, it wasn't like you were doing anything wrong. It's just I was trying to be the pointing finger down the trail, like, no, this way. You know what I mean? Because but you have to go through it yourself. Yeah. You just a finger pointed down a trail. That's all it is. You have to let them go through the process.
That's the key to everything. That's the key to everything. Because like I've realized, I used to be the guy. It's funny because you hear successful people talk about certain things, and you hear them talk about the fact that who they give advice to and who they don't give advice to, and it sounds good in theory, but you don't really understand it. And then eventually, I got to a point where I'm like, I get it now. I'm like, you can't just go and give people advice.
Nope.
Because it means nothing. They're just not at that point where that advice they don't even understand the meaning. It could just be a completely different language for them if you're talking to them at that point. Sometimes, and I hate to say it, but sometimes even the people that you love, you have to let them ride the shitstorm because they've been going about life a certain way. There's been a certain pattern that they've had their entire this whole time. In this entire life, and so. You're going to have to let the shitstorm happen because what the shitstorms do, they break the pattern, right? They break the pattern. And so now what happens is now they have to figure out a different way. And so that's where they start to adapt. That's where they start to become a different person, and that's what happened.
Yeah. That's where polarity comes from, and you kind of like, you take a step back also and look at it in a different lens. Even going through my personal situation, you were there for me during a time where, my whole life flipped upside down. and I was, deemed to be very successful in what I did for a living. And if I wasn't who I was in business, I don't think I would have made it through that time, because I wouldn't have the resources available to be able to protect myself. And I remember it was, you said something to me one day, and it was funny, but it was a tough conversation, and I was cursing a lot. And you were, obviously you were just being there and just letting me vent. And you were like, "Do you really want me to tell you what the problem is?" And I'm like, "No," because I knew the answer. You know what I mean? Yeah. But then that's the, obviously sitting back, and that's where just kind of like me understanding that type of situation, you have to go through the storm yourself. You do. Yeah. And you can't have someone tell you or project their bullshit onto a situation,
Exactly. Because it doesn't change the way you feel.
No.
Right? It doesn't change the way you feel. It doesn't change your mind. Like, you have to, sometimes this is where people and this was me, I grew up in a certain culture where as a man, you just didn't let yourself feel anything, right? Like, you are just a tough guy. You just got to ride it out. You just got to be a bull through everything. And I'm like, now I've changed my perspective. I'm like, there's still parts of that culture that I believe in. I believe that men should have a certain level of strength and project a certain level of strength, 100%. But also, exactly, like, that just has to be them. But they also have to allow themselves to be vulnerable with themselves. So before you can be vulnerable with the outside world or be able to impact other people's lives because of the fact that you're willing to be vulnerable or talk about things that maybe aren't so easy for you to talk about, you first have to be okay with yourself. And that starts by letting yourself feel whatever that thing is. So whatever that emotion is, you gotta let yourself feel it. You gotta let yourself truly, whether it's sad, anger, whatever, let it consume, not let it totally consume you, but let yourself allow it to like really,
you gotta feel it,
affect you, right? Like, so let it, feel it. That's exactly what it is. And so let yourself feel it. And now, after you've let yourself feel it, now you can start to be a little bit more logical in what you want to do, because now that opens up a whole new vision for you, and paths that you can take.
A different portal of a universe. That's what it felt like for me.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, wait a minute. I just pretty much, now I understand not just my pattern of behavior, my inactions of behavior.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different way of looking at life.
Yeah.
And once you start going down that rabbit hole, you don't come back the same way.
You can't.
You're like, I don't know what the fuck I was doing in life.
Yeah, exactly.
How are these people listening to me?
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing, but it's amazing because you start to realize how many people are going through the same exact thing.
Yes.
And it's just like, okay, I get it now. So, and it becomes so simple. It's like me just being on my journey and allowing myself to go through and grow through all of this. I'm naturally just going to start to impact more people. So the things I'm saying are true. The things I come on and talk about in a podcast are all true. Everything is good. But the one thing that changed with me was when I started to allow myself to be vulnerable with myself. And that's the biggest thing, it's like that thought, I always talked about something like when you have that thought that you don't even want to think. So what you do is you just hide from it.
Yep.
Right? You're like, push it aside. Let me go focus on this other thing, because that requires a certain vulnerability from you. When you finally get to a point where you can allow yourself to have that thought and allow yourself to feel whatever that thing is, what happens is you change as a person. So the way you project your energy, the way that people feel you starts to change.
I want everyone to listen to what he just said right then. Be conscious of how you're projecting your energy. That's massive.
And it just, because you transform into a whole nother being, right? You're before, when you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable with yourself, you've locked your energy in a cage, and it's only very limited to what it's allowed to do.
You're disconnected now from your source. You can't, it takes too much energy and too much effort to tap back into that.
And that's what was happening with me. So I'd get on a podcast, I'd get on a video, I'd get on whatever. And I'm like, man, I'm an hour afterwards, I am exhausted. I don't even want to do anything anymore. Now, because I've been working on this part of my life, which was the part that I needed to work on the entire time, now I could sit here and do this for hours, right? And I don't feel anything because I'm relaxed. I used to sit here and look at the time, right? I would look at the time and be like, all right, shit, I got to talk for, 30 more minutes. All right, let me make sure that I got everything straight, Now I'm like
ticking all the boxes. You're like ticking all the boxes. You're just let the conversation come to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's just like, whatever. I'm not looking at the time. I don't care. Everything is all good. Everything is solid. And I know any conversation I'm having is just going to flow where it's supposed to flow. Right. And I just let it happen. And that only happens when you allow yourself to start being vulnerable with yourself first. So,
well, and stop hiding behind what you feel, how people perceive you.
Yeah.
that was massive for me. And of course, me going through, part of I think podcasting in a certain way, I feel that this show, and that's why I'm still doing this show. I don't have to do this show anymore.
Yeah.
I feel that I still do the show because of the fact that what it did for me. Yeah. Like I feel that I've healed myself, not healed, but I feel like I went through a healing process. And if I didn't have this platform, I wouldn't have been able to uncover certain areas of opportunity for myself.
Yep.
And I was like, man, I remember there was a couple of times we had so many contracts at one point, and we're, making money doing our thing. We're still doing a show, but I was growing so much through the show. I didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
We both did. We were like, fuck this shit. This is stupid. We were making so much money, but we were like, I don't care. Like, whatever. Yeah. Like, I don't give a shit about this. I want to just do podcasting.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's where the energy was going, right? That's where where the passion, that's where the bigger vision really was. For me at the time, it was because I didn't lack vision. I had vision, but I lacked that energy, right? So that's the part I lacked who I was, right? So understanding who I was, being who I'm supposed to be for myself, right? Because I was very much a people pleaser. I'd say yes to everything. I felt like, okay, the world wants me to be projected a certain way, so I'm going to be that way. And it's not like I'm all of a sudden all perfect and whatever right now. The only thing different with me now versus then is I just allow myself to do what comes natural. Right? I allow myself to just go through whatever it is that I'm going through. I just allow it, right? And I don't try to overly control it. I try to understand it. I try to feel it out. I try to do all of those things, but I just allow myself to grow through it. And that's what opened up the doors. And funny enough, I went back to doing the same thing that I was doing right before I left all of this stuff, right? But now I came to it with a different.
But you're a different version. Yeah, you're a different version though. Yeah, that's a completely different version.
Exactly. And that's what when people talk about. So a lot of times people, I get a question like, "Hey, Wes, how do I find my purpose, or how do I find fulfillment in what I'm doing, or whatever the case might be?" I'm like, if you're not fulfilled with who you are, you're not going to be fulfilled with anything that you're doing in life. And so you can find meaning and purpose in everything. And now I went back to, obviously I own a sales agency now. I went back to doing that. Now I get so much purpose. I get so much fulfillment because there's so many areas. Like right now, I watched. So I'll give you an example. One of my sales guys, for the last 2 weeks, the last 2 week pay period. So his sales for 2 weeks, got a wire from me for $21,000. Right, $21,000 for 2 weeks worth of work. Right, so obviously he'll clear 50 grand most likely by that whole month. And I'm like, that's like that right there. That's what I live for. I'm like, give me that money. I feel nothing. Right, but let me see that guy. Right,
you gave him a vehicle. You gave him a vehicle to earn.
Exactly. Right. I'm like that. But see, that's where I find my purpose. That's where I find my fulfillment. So I'm like, once you have aligned yourself in who you are, you can find purpose and meaning in everything, because at the end of the day, everything you're going to do is going to impact somebody else. Right. And that's usually where your meaning and purpose is going to come from, is by what you bring to the world, right? And how you help other people in most cases. And but that only starts with you, right? Once you get that for yourself, now you see the meaning. Now you feel the meaning. Before you couldn't feel anything because you couldn't even feel your own emotions.
Right. You're numb. Well, but part of that is that you're not even trying to refuse the feel. You're just numb to any type of emotion because you're not used to feeling at all. So it just bounces off of you. You desensitize the feeling of anything, even the feeling of love. Like there's been times in my life where the person was trying to show me love and affection, and I wasn't able to receive it. Yeah, because I was so shut off. Yep. From feeling, So. Yep. And even when I look at sometimes now that you mentioned, you touched on something that's pretty massive, and I want the listeners to really understand this. When I stopped trying to understand everything, all my energy went to what I could focus on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can give a shit to what some of the situations, like, why do I feel that? I stopped trying to control that. Yeah. Why do I need to know every answer?
Which is a big thing to say, because we grew up very similarly.
Yes.
We had to be in control of everything.
Yes.
Everything. And to be able to finally get to the point where you can let go of that control, that's a massive achievement in itself.
And everything just comes, and that's when you actually remove a barrier that you're blocking your blessings.
Yep.
You're truly blocking your blessings, trying to understand and control things.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. So like, if you can ask yourself one question, the question would be, do I actually understand what I think I'm understanding? Like, do I actually understand what I think I'm understanding? Right. So like,
Right.
if you can ask yourself that question and then make it okay for yourself to say, maybe not, maybe so,
yeah.
maybe not. There's no clear answer. I may be right. I may not be right. But if you can just adapt that mindset, right, moving forward, you become a whole different person because you're not attached to a certain outcome anymore. Right. So you're just like, I don't understand everything. I don't know everything. And some things I do know, and they're going to work for me. Some things I'm going to learn throughout the process, because that's what life is pretty much. Right. And, but if you can get into that mindset, that changes your life forever. And that's the mindset we've gotten to.
Right. Yeah. And it's so funny is the path of least resistance is the one's going to obviously give you the most return on your time and effort. But you have to look at it. I'm looking at it backwards. Okay. And I want to make sure everyone understands this. You think on a level of your perception and reality, that's the path. They're like, I'm going to go with this least resistance. Well, that's actually the path that's hurting you. You know what I mean? Yeah. So stop trying to be everybody else is telling you who to be just because you're making money.
Exactly. Because your perception is your perception, and that's based off of your experiences, right? In life, the way you were raised and all that. This is actually what helped me believe in God, right? This is, I've always struggled believing in God. Right?
Both of us have. Yep.
And it just went through life. It was very difficult. And I'm like, all right, the reason why I have a problem believing in God, and I broke it down. I'm like, the reason why I have a problem believing in God is because according to my logic, God doesn't, everything I'm reading here doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The keywords there being according to my logic, right? So when I was like, okay, so what if my logic isn't the real logic, right? We can both be standing there looking at the same picture. You might see a horse, I might see a pig, right? That's just my perception, right? So what if that's the same thing? What if what I'm reading here, what if my understanding of God is off because it's based off of my perception? And that helped me. Not that I just know for certain that there's God anymore, but that helped me understand that the I don't understand everything, and it's okay to allow myself to have that faith, moving forward.
Like, what am I not seeing here?
Yeah.
Like, why am I not? And then when you go into the why, because you always want to start with why.
Yep.
Why? Well, who gives a fuck? Like, really, who cares? And this is where my relationship with God became strong. Was I stopped trying to understand the words written in a Quran or written in a Bible or written anywhere, or listening to a culture trying to project their fucking beliefs onto me that I didn't understand. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But when I become more spiritual, I realized, oh, I get it now. We are God. We are God. Like the spirit source. I understand now. Okay, this makes more sense now. So then you see, when you go through that, you have to go through it yourself.
You do. That's the thing, because everybody was trying to tell me what religion to believe. Everybody's trying to tell me who God is, right? That's a normal thing that happens. And I'm like, okay, when I got to a point where I'm like, all right, so these people's perception, because they tell you all the stories, the cultural stories around the religion and stuff like that. They tell you stories about the religion, and they're made up stories. Like, you just know they're made up stories, which actually is harmful to other people's beliefs, because we're very logical thinkers. So I'm like, all right, if I understand that I don't understand anything, okay, so if I understand that my version of logic isn't necessarily the actual logic that's true in this specific case, that means that other people are the same way, right? So why should I give merit to what they say and let that detract me from what I'm trying to accomplish and my understanding of this and the faith that I want to have? And exactly to your point of what you said, when your spirituality starts to increase, right? When you start to get more into who you are spiritually, and you let go of those thoughts and feelings of other people, you can start to make that connection with God, and that naturally starts to give you that faith and start to believe in what it is that you believe.
Yeah, 100%. And you actually remove judgment.
Yep.
Completely out of the dynamic of the whole situation. You remove judgment even for other people. I don't give a shit what people believe.
Yeah.
I know what I believe.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I don't care what you believe. It really doesn't matter to me. As long as you believe in something bigger than yourself, your narcissistic self, so that's where majority of these people are, because they're so self-absorbed. They don't see outside themselves.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. They're the center of the universe.
100%.
they're the center of the universe, and that's how most people. That's how they look at it. They're like, yeah, this is my world. I'm here. Everything revolves around me, type of a thing. But what you said there was key. Like when it's talking about not giving judgment and not trying to persuade them to believe something different. And when it comes to alignment and becoming a different version of yourself, that's key in the whole thing, right? That's absolutely key. Like you taking that level of thinking is very, very important. It helps you actually help more people because one, you don't cast judgment, and two, let them believe what they believe. And then all you do is just let them ride out the storm or ride out the journey or go down the path that they need to go down. That will naturally, if they have the right intention, that's what it comes back to. Like, do they have the right intention? Are they trying to get to a specific
That's
result?
the first thing I go after is the intention.
Right, exactly. Because if they have the intention, then it's okay. Remove timelines, remove your expectations, remove all of that. Eventually, if they care enough and they have the intention of achieving whatever it is that is, they're at some point, life is going to smack them in the face because they're not going down the right path. And then they're going to start to try and do different things to will eventually start to realize who they need to be and who they're becoming. That then leads them to that result. Right? But if I try to force them into, hey, you need to be exactly like this, I just screwed it up for them, right? Like who am I to tell you what path you need to go down? Because the only path that matters is a path that's going to make you feel what you need to feel to get to where you need to get to. And you're going to be the person that decides that.
Even dealing with haters, I've come to now, I just let them keep talking shit. I don't care. I don't even block them.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, if you feel that way, you know, I mean, just because you can't articulate your infatuation for me the way that you want to, you know what I mean? You're taking the time and effort to send me a message, and you're only talking to the abyss of nothingness anyway, because I don't read the shit. You know what I mean? Exactly. I can 2 words into the sentence, I already know if you're a person that showing me affection or is a person just showing me hate. I really don't give a fuck. So
you need those people though. Like you actually need those people because if you're somebody like I was, if you're somebody who runs off of, pleasing other people, the way people's perception of them, if you think good of me, if you think I'm great, if you think whatever, then that's what feeds my energy essentially. If you're that kind of person, you need haters in your life. Because that's the counterbalance to help you start to work through that piece. I got exposure to this when for a brief period of time I started a political podcast. Okay, so you can imagine, right? So I started a political.
I was watching from a distance, bro. I'm like, dude, this dude's catching so much shit right now, and I love it because I knew what it was doing for you. Yeah,
it was beautiful. I was like, it was my first real experience with hate. I've never gotten hate. I'm a pretty likable person. People don't usually hate on me whatsoever. It was my first true experience with hate. And the beautiful thing, this is like, if my care level was here when I started, with every comment, with every time somebody said something hateful to me, it just started to go down and down and down and down. So eventually I just used to get enjoyment out of watching then other people start hating on the hater, and then they all start having arguments, right? So now I just enjoy that. And that never stops. So now I'm getting a kick out of it. Now I've changed my relationship with the way that people view me. Now I understand that I can't be the person that just everybody needs to like them, because now I'm going down a road that is just going to be very detrimental to my success and to who I am in general. Right. And that was my first exposure to it. And I truly believe everybody needs that, in their life at some point or another.
It's funny is when you touched on that, and I remember watching from a distance going, I mean, he's catching some shit right now, because it was the most heightened time for that, because everybody was locked inside for pretty much a year. Yeah. And then that election started coming. And then, of course, what happened with the election, we're not going to get into, obviously, a rabbit hole here, but we can easily do that. You were catching it, man, from every direction. And I was just like, this is going to allow him to tap into something where he's just going to become so fucking resilient. Yeah. And you were already resilient before. It just gave that extra layer.
It's the emotional resilience. Right, like that emotional resilience, because that was one part of my emotional life that was so vulnerable, because I needed the approval of other people. Yeah, right. Like I ran off of it. Like some people run on coffee. I run on the approval of other people. And if any one person didn't approve of me or like me, that was just going to be a horrible. Yeah, I'm just going to sit there. It's just going to bother me. It's going to keep bothering me. So this is what I mean. My intention was, I knew who I wanted to be. I knew. So that was the first thing. I knew where I wanted to get to, what I wanted my life to look like. I started to become more and more clear on that. When I became more clear on that, then all right, now I just got to go through the journey. And that journey had its ups and downs. But throughout that process, I became more and more and more aligned in who I am. you know, and now
and who you're not,
and who I'm not, exactly, and who I'm not, and now I'm blessed that, not that I'm perfect, because I'm nowhere near perfect, nobody is, not that I have the most success, not that I have the most money, not that any of that stuff. Now I'm blessed. Yes, I have success, I have those things, but I'm blessed because I'm on this journey and I am where I am today, the kind of person that I am, because now the world is a big playground for me. Right now, I can just do whatever, right? And I'm
so
not afraid of anything. It really is.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful when you come to a point like, I don't really give a shit.
Yeah,
you're gonna do whatever you want to do. I'm just gonna do what I have to do to make shit happen. So, I mean, you just deal the card. I'm just a guy that knows how to play the hand, and sometimes I don't have the best hand, but I know how to play my hand.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because sometimes you don't know how to play your hand, and I'm just gonna eat you up.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of like you're gonna fuck it up regardless.
Exactly. Yeah, and if my hand loses, well, now I know how to play next time. Right now, I learned from that piece. Now I know how to implement it the next time, and that's the beautiful thing, because when it all becomes like a game for you, it's very beautiful, because now you can love your wins, but you can also love your losses. Right. And when you're at a point where you can do that, oh man,
and L is just a pause, bro. That's just a pause.
Exactly. Like, oh well, that didn't work. All right, so let's go ahead and try it differently now. And that's the beautiful thing, when you get to that point in life where you're grateful for your wins and you're grateful for your losses, you're grateful for the good things, you're grateful for the bad things. That's the most powerful place you can ever be as a human being, because now nothing can stop you.
Only build yourself. It's only self-sabotage is going to stop you. I stopped interrupting people that helping me win. Yeah. And what I mean by that is they destroy themselves. So I stopped interrupting them when they're making mistakes. I don't want to interrupt you. Keep going.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter to me. I mean, I'll stop you before you hurt yourself.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because that's my moral compass.
Yep.
Like, I'm not going to allow someone to self-sabotage and do harm to somebody else.
Right. Of course.
But if there's somebody out there screaming for help, I will point them in the right direction. But I'm not going to interrupt you when it's self-inflicted.
Right. Well, absolutely. And that's, I mean, when you have the emotional intelligence, right, to be able to read that situation and understand it. And the beautiful thing about emotional intelligence is that the only way you truly develop it is by experiencing a lot of different things in life, right? So when you've experienced a lot of hardship, that makes you more adept to these types of situations, right? So when you can decipher, okay, do I need to actually help this person directly right now? Do I need to help them indirectly right now, or do I just need to stay out of the way altogether? And then so you think through the process and in your understanding of what they're going through, and then you pick one of those three options and you move forward with it. But either way, you know what that person needs, right? And you give them exactly what they need, and that could be giving them nothing at all at that point. Even
when I look at people that request to come onto the show, Wes, like before, I would actually sit there and think about, okay, I want to go after this person. I want this person onto the show. I want to invite this person onto the show. I got this person come onto the show. And then I get them on a show. I'm like, they're a fucking idiot. Like, why did I have them on the show? But then now I hand select those I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Now. And it isn't because they're aligned to my businesses or aligned to the things that I want to talk about or the things that I want to share. It's just, if I'm have a genuine interest in the other individual, and I'm like, I really want to understand their concept. I want to understand their ideology. I want to understand how they view the world.
Yeah.
And when you start getting into that, I have the best conversations.
Yeah. Because you're genuinely curious.
Yeah, I'm genuinely curious. And I also want to look at it through a lens of, I'm asking questions from my understanding, but I'm also asking questions with the listener's ear going, okay, this is the question that they would want to ask. Yeah. So let me ask, okay, for the listener, you hear me a lot on the show going, and I've grown so much, and even from my listening skills of listening to what they're telling me, but then also listening from the lens and understanding from the perception of the people that are listening to my show and going, they're not going to understand that. Okay, let's break this down. They're not going to understand that. Okay, so let's say that again, but talk to a 2-year-old. Okay. You know what I mean? And I'm not, for the listeners, I'm not calling yourself a 2-year-old, but you have to get to the point to where you're able to share your vision and articulate your message and be able to explain it in 2 to 3 seconds.
You do, because some people aren't equipped to be able to understand your message, right? Like, there's some things in, like, I'll give you for example. So technology, right? Just technology in general. I suck at technology, right? Which is funny because I build systems and stuff like that. But there's certain technology I'm just not good with. if you came to talk to me about that technology, if you're not talking to me like I'm a 2-year-old, you might as well just be talking to the wall because I have no idea what you're saying. Right? It's the same thing with any other topic. Sometimes, especially deep emotional topics, we need to start somewhere, right? We need to start at a surface level of understanding, right? And then start to kind of get a little bit deeper and deeper and deeper. But you have to, if you haven't experienced certain things from an emotional perspective, you're not going to understand it when someone's actually talking about it because you can't feel it.
That's the key right there.
You can't
for
feel
the listeners. You allow them to feel it. So if you can explain your message or explain what you're trying to share, and allow them and create space for them to feel however the fuck they want to feel.
Yep.
So when you lose that people pleasing side of yourself, you see my point? That's the key there. When you lose, I don't give a shit how you're going to feel about this. I'm just going to tell you the truth.
Right. Yeah. You know, that's so key. That's so key. Like, it's made me such a better leader in general. I got this compliment the other day from one of my guys, and they're like, Wes, I love your leadership style. And it's not because you try to come down hard on us or anything like that, but it's because I'm afraid of disappointing you. And that is
powerful. That's influence.
And it is. And I'm like, and I've realized, I'm like, what changed? What changed? I'm like, I've changed. The way my intention, the way that I am, the way that I communicate, and the fact that I'm never going to bullshit you. Like, I may frame it a certain way, right? I may be very conscious of your feelings unless I know that you need your feelings hurt, because sometimes you need your feelings hurt. But but
especially people like us, you have to, if you're not hurting my feelings, you're not getting my attention.
That's exactly what it is, right? Like that's exactly what I need. So what I've realized though is now I'm so open and honest with people, and it's it's given me the ability to share my vision so much more clearly now more than ever before, and that allows people to buy into the mission, right? And I wasn't able to do that in the past because that just wasn't who I am. I was so closed off as a person emotionally. Like now, like I told my team I love them the other day. I'm like, hey, I love you guys. Like that might seem like nothing to some people.
That's massive it's massive for you.
I didn't grow up that way. I didn't grow up with using words like love, right? That wasn't a thing, right? For me, I couldn't say that to other people before. And now it's like, man, I genuinely love everybody that's around me because that's just who I am. I am more open now in my energy and who I am, that I can invite all that love in and I can project it right back out to other people.
That's so massive. I actually wrote this down in my, I have to send you that journal that there was some hate, a lot of hate shit in there, but there's a lot of it to myself. I actually wrote this down a while back in saying, I stopped trying to explain myself to my level of perception of my own awareness. When I started sharing my message to people to their level of understanding, all the resistance and all my frustration went away.
Yeah.
Fuck, man.
Well, I was the problem that whole time. Like,
they're not an idiot. They just haven't been exposed.
That's exactly what it is. They haven't had the experience.
I took all the negative charge out of that situation.
Yeah.
Now I'm just like, okay, let me explain it to you this way. And I just keep trying to re-explain it based on the level of my understanding from their perception and how they view it. Because how you view the world isn't how I view the world.
Right.
But be okay with that.
Yeah.
You become a powerful individual when you just can sit there going, well, they didn't understand it that way. Let me try to explain it without making them feel that you're trying to patronize them.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Like, that's exactly what it is. It's like you don't want them to feel like you think they're an idiot, right? Because like for me, like going back to my school days. So I was that annoying kid that like I had to ask about 32 questions before I'd understand what it is that you were talking about, right? Because I'm a conceptual thinker, right? So if I don't understand it conceptually, I don't get it. I'm not just going to memorize it because my memory sucks anyway. I got hit on the head way too many times, right? So like for me, I have to understand it conceptually to be able to actually fully grasp what it is. That's why I did good on tests, because when I'd understand it conceptually, I wouldn't know any of the answers.
We're so alike. When we completely forget all the, I don't even know what I took. I just aced it, but I got it. I'm good.
Exactly. Because it's like process of elimination. All right. Based off of what I know about what they talked about with this, I know it can't be this, or this. It has to be this one. Right. So it's like, that's how I passed all my tests. So, but if somebody didn't communicate, so I'd had a few different teachers. So I'd have a teacher who was very, they would do everything through application. Right. So they would teach you something by having you do it. right? And they would help you understand the concept behind it and how it functions. Then I had other teachers that would just sit there and lecture for an hour. You can probably guess which one I did better at, right? Because I couldn't, I'd have to ask the lecturer 1,000 questions before I could finally know, okay, here's what they're actually saying. Here's what this actually means, which is powerful. Then when you start to understand it, you're like, okay, other people need things differently. Like in sales, you know, when we talk about in sales, there's different types of buyers. It's the same thing. There's different types of people, and their way of understanding something is very different. So now you start to adjust your pattern. If you're talking to a group of people, you start to adjust your pattern of speaking to include all the elements that you know that people need to hit them wherever they are, right? So that's why, and that's exactly what you just said that you do. You're like, let me put it to you this way. Okay, let me put it to you this way. Okay,
analogies are key there. Analogies are key. And you know, even when you go to speaking, and obviously I haven't spoken a long time in front of a large group just because of obviously the situation, but I started to do it now more of. I've become a better speaker in understanding how to drop my anchors on certain parts of the room. I'm like, okay, they get it. I'm going to come back to that. And I'm going to come back to this because I'm sparking an emotion.
Yep.
But if I hit a dead spot, I'm like, okay, well, I have to warm up the crowd around them to get that dead spot before I would go right at that dead spot because my people pleasing issue, right? I was like, motherfucker, like, why aren't you not understanding me?
Yeah.
It's like, are you a fucking idiot? You know, that was my go-to because that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
My father, when I didn't understand what my father was saying, he would call me an idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And see, like you needed that reaction of understanding from other people. Right. In order for you to be like, oh, okay, I'm okay. All right, everything is good. I'm fine. Yeah. Right. Like, and if you didn't get that, then you're like, oh shit, what am I doing wrong? But you need that, right? The expression of other people tells you a lot about their understanding. So I look at faces a lot because I can almost see it going into their eyes, the understanding, right, of something or not understanding it. That's why when I do Zoom meetings, I always have everybody turn their cameras on because I want to actually see that person and how they're reacting. Not because I care about them thinking a certain way about me anymore. That's what it would have been in the past. Now it's like, okay, I want to make sure this information that I have. That's really interesting.
That's really interesting. I've been in so many meetings with you.
Yeah.
Where you can give it, you're on your headset, but you're not paying attention. You're off of camera.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. You said that.
Yeah,
You've
exactly.
grown a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And that right there, that's complete shit, right? That's in many different ways, right? So now it's like, no, you have to be on camera because there's a different type of connection we have when we can see each other, right? Like even right now, if we weren't on camera, it'd be a very different, the conversation just wouldn't be the same, right? So seeing is just more powerful because now we can start to connect with each other because we can read each other in many different ways. So now I do that in Zoom meetings because I want to see you because now I want to make sure that you're actually grasping what I'm saying. And if I see some people grasping it, some people not, I'm going to keep adding different layers of communication about the same exact topic. So I might say the same thing 4 times in 4 different ways because I want to make sure that whoever it is everybody there is going to grasp it. So.
It's like we're also reading energy, you know? Yeah. I mean, I'm big on this and you know this, and it kind of goes back to what, you know, obviously when we're doing podcasting and all my energy was flowing into podcasting and interviewing guests and having dope ass conversations. I stopped having stupid ass conversations with people that I was making money from because they weren't on the level of understanding and growth. They're still stuck in a rut and they're looking for some type of return on investment and trying to make money where I feel like, I felt at the time, I've already made a good amount of coin. I'm not trying to make more money. I'm just trying to figure out who I am.
Right.
And that what led me to who I am, but that's the beautiful part about it. You never can really fully grasp the understanding on who you are into the next moment.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I stopped trying to attain that.
Yeah.
So what I led with was who I'm not. And that was what obviously led me down that path.
Yeah, exactly. Because alignment doesn't just happen overnight. It doesn't just happen because of any one situation. Alignment just happens with you having an intention of having a certain emotion, essentially. Like you have an intention of getting to a certain place in life, right? And you kind of view yourself in a certain way. So now you set on this path. But if you can let go of the need to fully figure everything out right there and then, everything becomes more beautiful because that thing that you thought that you wanted may not even be the thing that you actually want. It's just whoever you were at that time, that was their thing, driven by so many different things. It could be ego, fear, or anything else. So now I'm just on this journey. And now that I'm okay just being on this journey, it's just like working out. Like I've always, like I got really fat at some point, right? Like I gained a pretty good amount of weight.
You were hiding.
Yeah. And I went through that a terrible path, right? My health got extremely poor. And I realized something about myself. I'm like, back in the past when because I always grew up, I was in shape. I was always in shape. I'm like, the difference between then and me now is I used to enjoy the process. Now I don't. So now, okay, now I got to solve for that. And I still wasn't good mentally at the time, but now I got to solve for that. So what do? Okay, I need to do something that I know I'm going to be consistent with and going to enjoy the process. Okay, so I'm very big on enjoying the process. If you can't enjoy the process, it's no good for you. It's not always going to be pleasant, but you just have to enjoy the process that you're on. So I took jujitsu, right? I got into jujitsu.
Gratitude is a key, ladies and gentlemen, behind that. Just gratitude for the shit you don't like to do. Yep. Gratitude that you have an opportunity to fucking do the shit you don't like to do. Go ahead. So
exactly, because that's loving the process. If you love the process that you're on, you're gonna love everything about it, even when things aren't so friendly towards you. So I got into jiu-jitsu because I'm like, all right, at least this I have a level of accountability, and I actually enjoy this. Okay, it's a really fun sport.
You learn leverage that way too. Leverage too.
Oh yeah, very big, very 100%. So then what did that do? That translated into me then. Because I'm going through a round of sparring and I feel like I'm on my last breath and I'm about to pass out, I'm like, all right, I need to eat better, right? I need to eat better now. Okay, so now I start eating better because now me going to jiu-jitsu is that feeling that I'm going to have, like I'm going to pass out because I can't breathe anymore. I can start to mitigate that feeling if I'm eating right. So now I have a purpose for eating right. Okay, cool. Now I'm here. Now I'm like, all right, now that I'm eating right, I'm starting to feel a little bit better, right? But when I try to grab somebody, my arms are starting to hurt. I'm not being able to actually swing anybody around. I'm not strong enough anymore. What do I need to do now? Okay, now I got to get in the gym. Okay, so now I got to go lift weights. So now that's my reason for doing that. So all these little incremental things that you're doing, right? And at that point, I had let go of trying to find, myself and meaning in life and all that. I had let go of all that. I'm like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to shut my brain off and I'm just going to go and see what happens. And eventually over time, one thing leads to the next, all of a sudden you're like, man, when did I become this joyful in life? Like, when did I be
you're outside talking to the pigeon, like, like what the fuck is wrong with me?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You start loving people, you start wanting to be around people, you start, loving everything, right? You just become this different person. Like, when did I start enjoying all this? And then even through bad times, so I know I shared with you that my dad obviously has cancer right now, right? So going through something really terrible, but it's amazing though, when you've gone through so much in your life, even going through this next phase where something is very uncomfortable, which something's very sad, you're scared of different things, right? It's not the best situation for you. You still maintain the same person that you are, right? So you can still find the joy in the things that you need to find joy about, and you can be in the moment, you can be present, you can take care of situations a lot better because now you've transformed yourself into that person because you stopped trying to control everything. And what you said earlier, I don't know if we recorded this or this was before the recording, is that you actually have gratitude, right? Like you actually have gratitude and
like really truly understanding what that means. You hear a lot of these fucking influencers and people of influence or whatever, or lack thereof, talk about, it starts with gratitude, but they really don't believe that shit.
No, because let me take away your platform. What do you do now? You still grateful?
How grateful? Yeah. Are you grateful?
Yeah.
When you get down to the point where you're just grateful that you have one more fucking breath, that's a whole different portal of gratitude.
It is. It is, because that's, you can't get any worse than that, right? Like what's the worst? The worst is gonna be death, right? Like that's the worst.
Prayers to your father, and that really needs to be, make sure that happens. I knew he was sick, but didn't know obviously the extent of the situation. But when you now look at time as a concept, you're grateful for how much time you have, but you're spending quality time because now you have a concept of understanding. I don't know how much is left.
Yeah, the time's ticking now. Now there's actually a clock. When before, I thought this was this infinite game that I'm never gonna stop. Absolutely, stop playing. And that right there is such a different. It makes you think so differently on such a different level, because now it's real. Yeah, at some point I'm not gonna be here. Right. And I don't want to say I'm particularly somebody who's scared of death. Like I'm not, I think it's just a natural order of things. I wasn't here before this. I'm not going to be here after this. It's just the moment of it happening is the part that you're like, all right, well, we'll see what happens there. But, but when you feel like there's actually a time here, there's a time that you're going to be here. There's a time you're not going to be here. That's when you start to be grateful because, hey, I woke up today. Like I woke up at 3 a.m. the other day and I'm like, I don't know why the thought of death was there, and I know I'm saying death way too many times on this right now, but like I woke up and it was just there. I'm like, it felt so real. Like it felt so real that it could happen to me at that moment. Not because of any particular thing, but because when you wake up at 3 a.m. and your mind is fresh, the natural thoughts are going to flow. Right. So that was the first natural thought. And then, so that was the first time I'm like, man, I'm so grateful. Like later on that day, I'm like, I'm so grateful for the fact that I even woke up today. Like and I do this. I make my team do this every day now. When we have our team meetings, I'm like, you need to tell me one win that you had today or one thing that you're grateful for, right? Because it's not for me. It's because you need to remember that you should always be grateful for something, no matter how bad things get, because of the fact that at some point you may not even be here. And you hear this a lot, but when you truly feel it, it's a very different story.
For myself, I had to become a little delusional with my gratitude. What you don't prepare for will end up destroying you.
Yeah.
So if you're not prepared to feel gratitude and feeling grateful, like even now, I have a hard time, and this is something I suffer from a long, long time. I can't stand when someone's upset with me.
Yeah.
It drives me up the fucking wall.
Yeah.
Like it bothers me. So
Same here.
I'm grateful that I have that, say, negative emotion attached to that. So now I show more gratitude on how I really feel about the person.
Yeah.
And I show more compassion rather than empathy, because empathy is where I take on that charge.
Yep.
See my point?
Yeah.
So now I'm showing compassion. So now I'm not going to have a negative charge. So however you react to whatever I'm about to say, I can give a shit.
Yeah.
But I do care about what you're saying.
Yeah.
But does it going to affect me?
Your relationships become so different and so much more authentic. Right, because of the fact that you're showing that compassion. Because it's funny because we already knew this. We're exactly the same way. So it's like, so for me, it was always empathy, because empathy, that's the start of me starting to control the situation. Right, so that's me starting to put you in a path to get to whatever it is.
Judgment comes in, judge, shame, and all this guilt and all this shit pops up.
Yeah, exactly. But if I can just be there in the moment with you, and allow you and just help you understand that I understand what you're going through, or I can at least be here to sympathize with you. It makes for a very different relationship. And when you can be vocal about it, that's what I struggled with. I sincerely cared about people. I wanted everything to be okay, but I was never good at showing it because I'd never had training on that. That's just not the way I grew up. Right. So I never had that vocalness of, hey, I appreciate
also showing it, and not to cut you off, but also showing it without any type of expectation of something in return. That's huge, and that only comes through when you've gone down your journey and you can have true compassion for other people. That's when you can truly have that, because we met a lady. We were at a event in Orlando, and I met a lady, and we were just, I don't know what we were doing, but we just got in the conversation, and I started telling this lady about what's happening with my dad and everything else, and this lady, tears in her eyes and everything else, just like explodes at me and telling me, here's what you need to tell him. Right. And I felt because she's gone through the same pain, I felt her emotion, her pain. She like vocalized it in such a loud way mentally, and then not even a loud way, like through her voice. It was just like, I could just feel everything that she was bringing across to me. She polarized her energy. She let go.
And I'm like, you're always going to have an amazing relationship with that person because you felt their intention and you felt who they are. And I'm like, that's what I aim to be. Is I want to be that person where if I can vocalize one thing to somebody, and that me vocalizing that one thing puts them on a path to starting to better themselves, or just makes them feel good for that day, right? Or makes them aware of something they weren't aware of, then I'm happy. That's where my fulfillment comes from, right? I don't need fulfillment from anything else, because I know whoever I ran into that day, I made an impact on them because of the fact that I was just there, willing to be with them in the moment and vocalize truly what they deserve, what they should have, what they shouldn't have, like whatever it is. I can just vocalize all of it. Essentially, you can vocalize love to that person. And that's one thing I struggled with for a long time. So if there's one thing I'm proud of for myself, it's really that. It's just being able to truly be there with my energy and vocalize love to other people, because
I'm so proud of you. I'm so fucking proud of you, man.
Appreciate it, bro.
I'm about to get emotional, but you've learned how to recycle energy.
Yeah.
Like true energy, to where you're not controlling the level of energy.
Yeah.
You're giving them you're giving them what you feel, and not understanding why they need to feel it. You're still, you know what I mean? When you release control of that, then you're able to kind of just like start to recycle, and you're recycling, and you're like, why am I feeling so fulfilled right now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Why does my energy just keep on growing?
It's like, this is fucking amazing. And then next thing you know, like 7 hours go by. You ever had deep conversations? This happens with us anyway, but having deep conversations with someone that gets you on the essence of their soul gets you.
Yep.
When you start to be able to communicate that way with every person you talk to,
yeah,
the world's your oyster, bro.
It's
over.
It really is. It really is. And that it's only unlocked by you. Like you can't have that level of relationship, that level of connection with people until you've unlocked that part of you. Right. And for me, the missing link was the fact that I didn't know how to accept love, and I didn't know how to project love. Right. Like those are the things that I did not know how to do whatsoever, because in my mind, I didn't deserve any of it. Right. That's what is in my mind. So that's the path that I needed to go down. Right. I was watching you do it. Right. You're transforming into that person. And I'm like, I'm not that person. Right. I'm not that person yet. Right. I'm not that person yet. And so for me, I had to go down this journey, right. This, a few year journey, whatever it's been, to become that person, because I knew that that's the person I wanted to be. That's the intention. Right. And I knew that's the person I want to be. And life took me down that road.
Do you know the reason why you weren't on that path yet? Because you were in a position to feel yet. Yeah. I was forced. It wasn't that I was better or whatever. It doesn't, it's just that it was my path. It was my journey. Yeah. I was forced to feel. Yeah. And the reason why I was breaking through and I was just blazing through shit is because I was discovering more and more and more about myself that I never thought was even there. Yeah. And because I was forced to feel.
Exactly. Which the crazy thing is, I used to make fun of people that were that way, that they were all about their feelings, right? And they just projected all that out. I'm like, man, what's the matter with you, right? Like that was my thought process. I'm like, oh, I'm a logical thinker, and so I didn't realize at the time that I wasn't a logical.
Same way. I was the same way, bro, until I was forced. Yeah,
exactly. And I didn't realize how weak I actually was. I'm like, I thought I was this mentally strong person, and in some capacities I am. I can take on a lot of chaos and be fine, right? I'm my most calm when there's chaos. But I've never tapped into this vulnerability, this vulnerable side of me, because I'm so scared, and because I'm scared, that's where the weakness is. And the last 2 years of my journey has been strengthening that area of weakness, right?
That's
and
so
once you've unlocked that, it's like imagine like you're just this person, and all of a sudden this like light comes shining from.
You're weightless.
It's exactly what it is.
She was talking to an individual, it was a young woman, and she was saying, I keep meeting half-ready men. First off, are you the person that you want to be? Like who gives a fuck about these people? You attract who you are. You're not the right person yet.
Exactly.
If you're trying to project something, you're trying to manipulate, you're trying to control.
Right. Which ends up badly usually.
You're going to try to force something that isn't meant for you.
No.
There to fix them. I don't give a shit. And I've actually had conversations with people that's going, listen, like it doesn't really matter to me. I don't care. Like I don't have any judgment. It doesn't really bother me. Like I can give a shit if you're here tomorrow, you're gone. I mean, someone's going to come with me. People want to be around people that are not trying to force a narrative.
Exactly. That's the most annoying trait. I know when you're around somebody, and they're trying to force a narrative on you, or they're trying to just force their way of thinking on you. They're very forceful in every way, right? With you. When it comes to that, that's the last person in the world you want to be around. I cannot stand being around people like that, because they're never actually listening to you, right? Like there's no real connection or relationship there. But when somebody's actually there with you, like when somebody is there and
you can feel it.
You can feel it, right? And that feeling, that's where that connection point happens, right? That's why sometimes you can just talk to somebody. You're like, wow, I feel like I've known this person for 100 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you know who you are. Because you know who you are.
Exactly.
See my point? And I want everyone to understand that we didn't even talk about sales, but we talked about sales this whole time, and no one actually understood that we're talking about sales.
That's exactly what it is. Everything we just talked about can relate straight back to that.
There's a pin drop for everybody listening right now. I'm like, well, damn, Wes came on with Chris and they didn't even talk about sales. And we got an hour into it and waited to the moment. And like, we've been talking about sales the whole time.
Yeah. Yep.
The whole time. Because when you get to a point in your ability to share a vision, to articulate your message vividly from their level of understanding based on their perception of their reality, not your reality, this game is over.
Yep.
Because it really doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me what people believe. But do you believe something bigger than yourself?
Yeah. And that, if you can adopt that, this is the one thing that's always been very difficult for me to train, right? I train a lot of sales. This is the one area that's been very difficult for me to train. Some people call it emotional intelligence, but this has been a very difficult area because I can't make you into something that you're not. The only thing I can do is encourage you down a path. And if you go down that path and you become a different version of yourself, now you're going to naturally get better in that area. Otherwise, you're just going to be like every other salesperson. That's one of the, if I could say, if there's one thing that's hard, and I've been putting together specific things in place to try to train on this, because part of emotional intelligence you can train, but when you're getting into a very deep level of emotional connection and true understanding, and being able to utilize certain situations, vulnerabilities to help someone impact their life and help them make a decision because of it. Some of that stuff is so deep that you have to become a different person to get there. And that's why I truly believe there's always going to be a gap between the 1% of salespeople out there and everybody else, because that's the only thing missing from everybody else is that deep level of emotional intelligence that the 1% have.
You can't get to that type of level showing empathy. You have only compassion.
Yep.
Because empathy, that's going to lead you down the path of control.
Yep, exactly. And it's not going to be an authentic relationship.
No.
Like if I can build an authentic relationship with my prospect, if we're going to sales, if I can have an authentic relationship with my prospect, that means now I'm open to tell them exactly what they need to hear. That's going to help them move forward in this process of the way that they're supposed to. That's why I'm like, some of the things I do, I can't really train, because the level of relationship I'll build with a prospect means that they're just going to do anything that I say because they view me that way. Not because I forced it, but because they just view me that way.
How many times we've had people come to us? It's like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Just Wes and Chris told me I should do it.
that was the highlight. That was the highlight. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how it is. And I cannot tell you how you can do that. All I could tell you is when somebody respects you, when somebody views you as the authority, when somebody feels that you have their best interest at heart and they have a true connection with you, they will buy whatever it is that you're selling because they know it's going to help them.
I got to send you a sales training that I did. Well, you know how you post it on private or something, or private or whatever it's called on YouTube? Yeah. Somehow it came like unlisted and people were finding it somehow. And so I took it off the thing. I'll have to send it to you, but you're going to like how I framed the whole conversation.
Yeah. Because
their level of perception of the way they viewed the world wasn't the way that I saw it.
Yeah.
They couldn't even tell me what the fuck sales was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's the first thing is when I'm trying to train someone or train a company, where I'm trying to, I wouldn't say influence, because that's actually not what I'm trying to control. Trying to raise their awareness of understanding from my perception. I need to understand what they feel.
Right. Exactly.
How do you see the world?
Yep.
So when I say sales, what does that mean to you?
Yeah.
And the problem is most of us are trying to project or trying to insert how we feel on others and trying to control an outcome. When you're a trainer, when you remove the outcome in mind of what you desire, I didn't give a shit. But by the middle of the training, they looked at me differently.
Yeah.
They were like, this guy is either enlightened or he's fucking crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
You start seeing their faces going like, what the fuck?
I've never heard this before. What
right.
So yeah, that's exactly what it is. Because I believe that as a trainer, there's short-term gains and long-term gains that you can help somebody make, right? So like short-term gains is if I understand your perception, right? So that's the first thing I need to understand is, what do you understand? What do you know? What do you feel? What's your perception about all of this? When I understand that, I can give you a way to be able to utilize your framework to then be successful, right? I can work it within your own framework. That's the short-term gains. Then there's a long-term gains, which is then helping you start to expand on your perception so that it can align in a way that was going to help you take yourself to the next level, right? And that's the long-term training side of things, but that takes a long time. It
does take a long time, and you need to adopt more patience in the process.
Yeah.
Depending on the level of understanding, and then also if it's chaotic, people want to get to the outcome. But learning how to breathe calmly in chaos, it frustrates people. They don't understand who they are.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the world's ending. I'm like, no, it's not. Just your world. you
Right.
live in is ending, not
Yep.
mine. I'm
Yep.
okay. When you remove that from people and they go, and then you have to let them feel it for a second.
Yeah.
See, you didn't die.
Yep.
You can live through this.
Yeah.
You can
You've
go through
expanded their
this.
threshold.
Yeah. They're like, oh my God. And then when you open their mind to a different way of looking at life, they go, Chris, I love you, man. I appreciate you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, you just love the outcome that I got you to.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Now, what can you do to raise someone else's awareness?
Right. Exactly.
Without anything in return.
Yeah.
Now go.
That's the key.
That's the key.
Without anything in return. It's like, and the beautiful thing is when you help someone, like in the past when I'd help somebody, there's always that thing. You would say you don't want something in return, but in your mind you're like,
Yeah.
at least want a damn thank you. Like just give me something, right? But
Or
now
fuck you or something, you know.
right, exactly. Now it's like I don't care. Like my fulfillment came from helping you, not from how you felt about me in return. And that's a powerful place to be in life. You know, when
Man,
you
this
can,
is powerful.
it really is.
We're gonna have to do more of these, man. Now that it's kind of like scratching an itch that hasn't been scratched in a while, right? So you're like, wait a minute, now this is like we're onto something. We just like fuck it, we'll go build other shit, and then we come back, and now it's like I enjoy so much of what I do and why I do what I do, but this type of conversation is obviously different because and if you go back and listen to episode 1 or 2 of the win-win effect, and I'm pretty sure you'll see the growth on both sides, and that's what makes me so proud.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. That's not what it's all about, and I'm going to do that at some point. I've been listening to some of the other episodes, like
Have
the
you?
newer ones.
Yeah.
I haven't gone back to the older ones yet, so I want to go back to those because you can literally see the growth, and that's what I want to encourage everybody to do. Like, be patient. We're talking about years of growth here. Be patient in the process.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
Let go of that need for gratification right now. Just let it go completely and just try to fall in love with the process that you're on. Right. And if you can accomplish that, you've already won. Like you don't even realize it, but you've already won at that point. And now everything else that you do in life is just a bonus on top of it. I
have identified. I don't like to listen to myself. You know this. I just don't. I don't like to listen. But someone brought to my attention, like you've learned how to deal with your silences more through your journey of podcasting and asking questions.
Yeah.
I don't say a lot of those filler words that I used to say.
Yeah.
And they forced me to listen to an episode. And I was like, what the fuck was I even talking about? But you can definitely tell that I was trying to still frame it in a certain way where people were viewing me in a light where I wanted to be seen.
Yeah.
See my point?
Now
I can give a fuck. so
bro, we've been here for what? Hour 13, right?
Yeah.
We've been doing this. So first of all, I didn't even feel the time go by.
Neither. Blinked. Yeah.
Wes 2 years ago would have been counting down the minutes, right? Because he's my brain's working so hard to make sure that the perception is the way that it needs to be, that I'm just freaking exhausted. Now I'm just here having a conversation, right? Like I forget that we're even recording. Like none of it, it's a very different place to be. And that's what I'm grateful for. So like this moment right here is a moment I'm going to be grateful for a long time, because it stamps, it stamps the fact that, hey, you're on the right track. You're doing the right things. The way you feel right now means that you've had that growth. And once you've achieved that, once you've achieved the fact that you can just be okay in who you are, you've won at life. Everything else is a bonus.
Right. I love that, man. And I'm just so grateful. One, our friendship, and then plus on top of that, the love for one another and the respect, allowing each one of us to go through what we needed to and not trying to because I love you. So if you're going through a time, we're going through a time.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was the old way of thinking. We're going through a time, but I'm just going to be here and hold space with you.
Right.
And let you just have a human experience.
Yeah. And that's the one thing I'm very grateful for you for is some people would have been like, hey, what's in my best interest right now is that Wes stays on board because, then he can do this.
I didn't say that to you. I didn't say that to you.
Not at all. And that's what I appreciated the most, because I'm like, all right, obviously Chris actually cares about me. Most of other people wouldn't have done that, right? Most other people would have been like, no, just keep doing this, keep doing that. But you understood that where I was, right? And what I actually needed. in order to get to where I am. And I'll always be grateful for that, because it set me down absolutely. And it sent me down a path where I've now been able, and now I can confidently say I'm more aligned in who I am than I've ever been in my entire life.
I appreciate that. Means that's, remember the moment when you said that you're one of your team members, but I never looked at you obviously that way. We're partners, we're brothers. When he mentioned to you is like, I respect you, so much, because your style, a way of, it hurt. I'm not gonna lie to you, it hurt. I mean, I didn't want obviously to end, the way it did, but it wasn't like a bad thing. It was just, but I still remember the moment, because we had a tough conversation 2 days before, and then we had a really tough conversation. But that really tough conversation was probably harder for you than it was for me, because I knew it was coming. And when you should have felt your everything release off of you, because you didn't want to disappoint me.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I'm even whatever you tell me right now, it doesn't really matter. I just want you to be okay. I was like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, of course I want you here, but if that's something you feel, that was the thing I said to you, you feel that you need to do, then I'm with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's kind of like one of those moments you were like, okay, well, maybe I can be okay. And there was a couple of times when I was doing interviews, like, I don't want to do this shit no more. Wes ain't here no more.
Yeah.
Fuck everybody else. Like, they gave me something else to do, because I still had a longer, well, I'm gonna say longer. I said I had a long way to go on my journey.
Yeah.
And I started to flesh out the concept of WINJECT and how, we came with this idea. I mean, it all started with, and just for people, and I know we have to go, but for people listening to this, the name WINJECT came from me and Wes being on actually training one time.
Yeah. And
Wes actually heard me say this to everyone on the call. I'm like, I almost have to stab you motherfuckers with winning. You know what I mean? So you know what it feels like, and that's where WINJECT came from, is WINJECT. But when I started fleshing out the idea of WINJECT, and from the concept of on how we kind of saw it, I realized that this is bigger than I initially thought, or we thought.
Yeah.
And I was like, then I was making money doing other things. So I was like, well, I'm not in a rush. It's before we hit record on this thing. Yeah. I'm just not in a rush. Like, I'm looking for the 0.01% of people that really want to do something with their life.
Yeah.
And I can give a shit. I get 7 to 10 applications a day. I only take on a new content creator or a new verified WINJECT creator one a month.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in a rush.
Exactly. And that's such a beautiful place to be. Now you can fully enjoy the process. You can build something the way that exactly how you envision it. Mm-hmm. And that is what makes it great. That's what makes it great. And that's why everybody sees what you've done. They see WINJECT. They see everything that's gone into it. Everything you do just looks amazing, feels amazing. Absolutely. And it shows, right? Because you've put that care into it, because you weren't in such a rush to just make money or whatever the case might be.
Well, I treat everyone's concept or their idea like it's mine.
Yeah.
And I put forth the time and energy for them to see the way I see the vision within themselves. And I told you this before, and that's something we both share, because I think that's part of your superpower, is that you see things in people they don't see yet.
Right.
And that's the true definition of someone that develops a strong emotional intelligence, that I see things in people they don't see.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you give them encouragement, you help them see the vision for themselves. Mm-hmm. Then you give them pieces. And
doses, yeah.
And as long as they take those doses and they keep running with it, they'll just
keep going like Pac-Man, like I'm like, God damn, man, it's like, this is getting frustrating, But it's almost at a point where it's exhausting. But then you start falling in love with their process.
Exactly. It's like you're starting all over again. It's like the most
it's beautiful.
thing.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's what we love. We love the building, right? We love the building. We love the creating. And so you fall in love with that process. That's the passion.
Right. Guys, go back and listen to some of the older episodes, but obviously Wes we'll have him come back on. This is his show just as much as it is mine. So this is ours. And without Wes, we wouldn't have been able to accomplish the things that we've been able to accomplish on the show and the conversations and the lives that we've inspired directly or indirectly. Even some people would get messages, Wes, from the older episodes. I'm like, I didn't understand what the fuck y'all were talking about back then, but now I get it. See, they were hating before. Now they understand it. We've raised their awareness.
Yep. Yep, that's what it is.
They're like, what assholes. I'm like, yeah, it is what it is. You call me an asshole. It's one thing you won't call me is broke.
There you go. That's awesome.
All right, man. But yeah, appreciate you guys. Take care. Peace out. Much love. Wes, anything you want to leave them with today?
No, just I mean, the only thing I would really say to everybody is be okay. Be okay where you are now, and just be okay with taking one step forward, and don't think too hard about what the result of that is going to be. Allow yourself to just live in the moment, and that'll start you down a path to really help you become who you're supposed to be.
Mic drop. Peace out. Much love, guys. Y'all go get with it or get lost. That's for sure. This is gonna be fun, man. I'm gonna make sure that this gets out to anybody that needs to hear this message, and please share it with anybody that you feel that needs to hear it. And I mean, in a lot of different types of ways. But peace out. Much love, guys.